Hello again, YouTube. Here's another one of my bikes, my mini projects, my mini bikes that I have. So this one is a follow-up to the single speed that I had in the video. I think it was last week or something like that. This one is my original Inbred before I had the single speed. So essentially the same frame, 71 degree heads, 29er. The only difference is the vertical dropout. So what we'll do is we'll start from the front, go at the back as normal. So up front we have a multitude of things on this bike. It's because it's a tour bike and it's got a bit of everything. So it's not the lightest thing either and stuff like that too. So we have bar ends, a bit taped together because they're falling to pieces. But they do the job. But actually the tape's really good because it keeps them slightly warm. Versus, if you're on a cold day and you've got metal ones and they're freezing cold, even though you've got gloves on, the cold still comes through. I have a kind of ergo style grip, which resemble, these are Chinese ones, but they resemble the Ergon ones. They're very, very similar and actually feel the same and everything, they look the same. Really good set of grips. I had the Ergons on originally, but these ones were cheaper. I don't think I could get the Ergons at the time during the parts crisis, stuff like that. The only problem with the purple is they get dirty really easily, which is kind of nippy, but it is what it is. So for brake wise, we have a set of SLX, so just 2-pots, not 4-pot ones. Actually really good brakes on this. Quite a few of my customers have asked me, like, why are they so good? I'm like, I have no idea, just work really well, this one. They come with the black grips on it, which I sell in the shop as well. Give you a really good bit of grip. From there we have the the box components shifter, so 9-speed shifter. That's the box 2 prime 9 off the top of my head, can't remember. Actually might not be, that might be the box 3. I'm sure it is actually, it's the box 3 shifter rather than the box 2 one, but it has a box 2 derailleur, but we'll get back to that in a minute. From there we have this reflective light. This is solar, which I might actually take off because it's not a chance to charge since last night. And I'll put another light on there. Then underneath we have a bright USB light, which is actually really good. It's been there for years. Never had a problem from it until about now. Kind of USB doesn't sit right in it, but still works perfectly fine if you get it right when you put the USB in. We have a 50mm stem. Just kind of purple, matches everything else on the bike, so kind of cool. Stem is 35mm clamp with a 31.8 adapter on it to fit onto the bars. We have the usual Q-lock, SLX on the rear, and a dual Shimano shifter up on the left hand side here. From there we have the Thompson bars. Good bars, I like all Thompson stuff. Thompson stuff's expensive, but the build quality is usually second to none. It's really good. These ones, I've never measured them, but I'm sure these ones are 740 with a 20mm rise and 31.8mm clamp. Just a typical standard riser bar you find on a lot of bikes out there. It's about the right width and everything like that. It's a very standard size. Not as wide as a downhole bar, not as slim as a race bar or anything like that. So just a really all-round comfortable size for the width of my shoulders. It has a steer extension on it because it's a tour bike, so I like to sit up just a little bit more if I'm going to do some distance on there. It's not as uncomfortable on the back. Busts, the forks on these could have done with being longer and would have raised the bike up a little bit more, but at the time I bought the forks in 2014, my knowledge on what I wanted on the bike wasn't as good as it is now. So from there we have the carbon cycle forks, just talking about them. Exotic forks, but these are not actually carbon, although it comes from Carbon Cycles, which is that company known as Disco Brakes, also known as Exotic. So can't seem to decide on what they want to call themselves, but still fantastic company. Really good products that you get from them. In general, build quality is second to none. A lot of people have these online and none of them complain about them because they've all been really good. These ones are from 2014. They were originally on a KTM 29, which they were on that, and I'd done a 500 mile cycle on them with excuse me, with forks on the front. Sorry, panniers on the front of it, clamped on with hose clamps. It works really well, and they never bothered about that. So they've been through loads of things. I've jumped them and all that kind of stuff, and never have an issue. Excuse me. And from there on in, we have Kinesis Max lights. These are the version 2 29ers with a 34mm inner and 35mm outer. Good for plus size tyres or the larger standard tyres. So the tyres on it, on the front, excuse me, I'm sitting on a key and it's stabbing me in the stomach. So the tyres on the front of it are Maxxis Grifters, which I did have front and rear, but I'll explain to you why I don't have them in the rear. These are set up tubeless with that kind of ghetto tubeless that I do. It's just, it works every time, all the time. So I don't really care too much about the external look on the tape. Doesn't bother me too much. When you're going along, nobody really notices it. So these are set up tubeless. They're 29 by 2.5, pretty near slick. Very good touring tyre. So you can let these down, you know, to like 25 psi if you're going to go off-roading, so on really gravelly sections, and it'll take away a lot of that bite of the gravel. And stop the bike from shuddering all over the place and hurting your wrists and your ankles and things like that. So really good. It has a mud hugger front mudguard. Not a mudguard I'd recommend. This old style. The new style has changed slightly. This old style doesn't have that run that you got on the Zephyr one. So this is the mudguard. It likes to get it likes to get pulled off with the mud. If the target's covered in mud, creates a suction and pulls the mudguard forward and tries to rip it off the fork. Not a great design. From there on in, we'll go around the other side. Have a lightened QR skewer, which is not on the back just now. I actually have one for the back as well, but I'll explain why I don't have it on there. Just forgot to change it. Then you've got the Uberbike front rotor. These are actually fairly new. I had to wait probably 2 months for Uberbike to get these back in stock again. Fantastic rotors, can't complain about them at all. And you've got the 2-pot Shimano SLX caliper sitting on there. It's got a funny mounting system because this fork has a funny mounting system. It doesn't quite use the 203 IS adapters, they don't fit. So I've got to do a little bit of creativeness. Works perfectly fine, we're on there for years, so it's not, creativeness works, does the job, no problem. It has just brand spanking new nuke proof headset, seal bearings, that kind of thing, so it got upgraded because the old one was starting to get a bit knackered, and it wasn't sealed, it was just caged. So from there we have large 19-inch frame, Selly SMP TRK, sorry, get that right, there's TRK there. Saddle, these are the ones that I really like, really good for getting your perineum in here, and stops a lot of your manhood from, you know, going numb and getting off and turns into pins and needles. Which is a good thing, because if it goes numb, that means it's pinching a vein. If it's pinching a vein, that means blood's not getting to certain areas, and you could end up with brewer's droop. So if you do that long enough, it will happen. Speak to a lot of the top cyclists, they'll explain that one for you. So I don't want that, and that's why I've got an expensive saddle, and it works perfectly fine. Don't normally have the bag in it. It depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I try not to use a rucksack to keep the weight off my back, especially when I'm going cycling with somebody who's a little faster than I am. And I start to sweat, then the rucksack gives you a little bit of rash, so if I can put my gear in here, then I will. So inside here right now is a wind cheater, a couple of batteries for my light. The batteries are inside here, that's where the USB goes into. And there's some tools in case I break down or anything like that. Your litre sized Zephyr bottle, really good, does the job. Sell them in the shop, I think they're $4.99 off the top of my head, might be $5.99, can't remember. And from there on in, we've got a carbon seat post just to try and lighten the bike up. It's not a dropper, there's no point in having a dropper on a tour bike. Just adds weight for the limited amount of time that I'd actually ever use it. I mean, sometimes in my head I'm like, oh, I could do with a dropper, but it just adds weight, and it's a tour bike. I never really drop the seat unless I'm going off road, and if I'm going off road, shouldn't be doing big jumps and that in it, so it shouldn't matter too much anyway. I have an SLX kit. Now the SLX crankset I really like. These are knackered, and try to find another one that's new that it's that style. I really like them, but they're getting less and less, and they're also quite expensive. What's actually knackered is actually knackered. It's not as if chain rings are knackered, it's actually the spindle that goes through. One of the bearings got stuck in it, and it created a groove on the spindle. So I then had to put an extra mil spacer to push out the bottom bracket cup so that it sits off that milled out bit. It's not a great solution, but it works just now until I can find another set of these. I like these because they don't wear. All the black ones have a tendency, when you're going round and round and round, your foot rubs off of it, and then you end up with this wear line along here, which is horrible. So I like these. These actually look quite good, but I might end up having to get a different set of cranks. We'll see. But as it stands at the moment, it has a 3650 on the front. They're custom chain rings. They're not like Shimano or FSA or anything like that. They're a aftermarket brand. Can't remember what they are off the top of my head. Aftermarket pedals, and with this one it has, there we go, nuke proof bottom bracket, which is fairly new. Had a Hookworm on it, which was great. It lasted like 2 years. Absolute nightmare to take off because Numpty here never ever took it off and greased it. At the end, I tried to get it off, which I thought I was going to break the bike. It was so seized on there. That's the problem you get with steel rather than alloy. When it binds together, it really binds together. Anyway, so basic pedals. It runs Maxxis Hookworm on the back, which is a 29 by 2.5, not a lot of clearance. Let me squeeze down again. So sometimes rubs off the frame in really hard cornering. I would prefer a 2.4, but they'll make them. That is what it is. So Maxxis 29 by 2.5. Originally had a grifter in the back, got hit with a massive bit of glass, made a big freaking hole in it, and required about a 3 mile walk back to the shop. Lucky enough, halfway along that, customer comes along with a van, goes, "Hey Scott, you're the guy that owns the bike shop." I'm like, "Yeah, do you want to lift back?" I'm like, "Yes." Could have done with him like a mile and a half before that, but hey, it's cool, it's good on him. Runs a kinesis wheel in the back, sealed bearings, 135mm QR, 100mm QR in front. Has a a bug gear quick release in here, because often with this bike I'll have a trailer that sits at the back, so you sometimes see in the shop sits in here like that, and then you've got your pivot point here and your pivot point at the trailer at the back that way, and the trailer comes out, sits quite a distance on the back there. Freaking expensive. I can get them in if you need them, but they come out, they're about here, some of them are really long, but you're talking nearly £600 for a trailer. In fact, that was pre-pandemic prices. I've never actually ordered another one in for customers, just for me, so there might even be more than that, but I've had mine for 5 years and never really had any problems with it, and I've put lots of weight in it, so it's been really good. Runs an Inbred rotor, same as the front one, 203 front and rear. The reason I have 203 front and rear is because I'm a heavy dude, and so is the trailer when it's on there, and it is like a freight train when it pushes you down the hill. So big rotors on it, just to do heat dissipation. I had 160, 180 on one of my other bikes that had the trailer on the back, and I went down Last Wave Bray. If any of you are locals and you know where Last Wave Bray is, you know from the Lonehead side it is incredibly steep, and I lost all brakes halfway down. They were just going on trying to like brake to like try and cool down, and try to put my feet on the ground and everything like that. So bigger rotors for heat dissipation, and braking leverage, which works really well. We have, so originally had a Box 3 Prime 9 on the back, which I really liked. It actually shifts better than the Box 2 ones, but I kept breaking it with the trailer. What actually happened was, when I went off road and I would flex the bike that way, the trailer would come down and hit the derailleur. It didn't do it on the Shimano ones, and I just never thought nothing of it, and then I couldn't figure out how I broke my first derailleur. I got back to the shop and it's all over the place. Couldn't set the gears, and it broke the B screw. Put a new one on there, went back out, done the same thing. I mean, it was only like 2 weeks old, and broke it again and realised it was the trailer that was breaking them. So I put a box 2 one on it, which gives me a little bit more leverage ability, so when you're going that way, still it's pretty damn close. So box components, and a better design would be nice. Not that you probably would ever have tested them with a bob gear trailer, but it would be good if you did. Shimano ones don't do it because they have that goat link, which pushes the trailer back and down, so it doesn't affect the trailer at all. Runs the box 2 Prime 9 cassette and chain, so not any major issues. The gears on this bike are a bit off, but they've always been a bit off. I think the frame's slightly twisted. It was a new frame, but Planet X, you know, the quality control is not fantastic. So sometimes it can be a bit off with the gearing, but it doesn't bother me too much, so I just kind of live with it. But we're into 15 minutes, actually 16 minutes in the video now, so I am going ahead. I want to go out for a cycle, and it is getting freaking late. It's about 6:30. So there we go. This is the tour bike. Every time I say I've got a tour bike, this is it. So it's the usual sort of DN6 steel frame. So this thing is from 2017, I think, and I have beat the living daylights out of this bike, and it's never had an issue with the frame at all. No bends and twists, no cracks, nothing needs welded. The paint in general has been okay. There's some flaky bits. It's also, I taped it, it's armour taped around there as well. But it's been a really good bike, sort of. Okay, cheers now. Have a good day. Bye bye.